Can solo queue be buffed without inadvertently also buffing Survive with Friends? The typical argument you hear is that the solo queue experience needs to be brought as close to the Survive with Friends experience as possible so that killers in turn can be adequately balanced. However, a lot of the proposed changes to solo queue make Survive with Friends even stronger, so it's very crucial that when Behavior starts designing these changes, they understand how to implement them without just creating new problems. In this video, I'm going to be explaining how I would buff solo queue, but more importantly, why I believe a lot of the most commonly proposed changes to buff solo queue are flawed. A great example of this is making Kindred Basekit for all survivors. Kindred is the perk that allows you to see the killer's aura while they're close to the hook, while also seeing the aura of your entire team. If Kindred became Basekit as it is right now, open-handed would become meta overnight guaranteed, which would give all survivors not only enormous wall hack range on killers, it would also give survivors an insane heads up on which direction the killer was heading after hooking a survivor, allowing other survivors to preemptively hide or shift W to a safe location 10 years before the killer arrives. So what happens when a killer goes to a gen and doesn't find a survivor there to chase? They go straight back to the hook and end up tunneling. Even a perk sort of like Kindred that would only show your teammates' auras and not the killer's aura would still be a bit of a problem because it wouldn't tell your team if the killer is face camping or not. A call out any Survive with Friends could easily make. This is why we need to ask for very specific changes, otherwise Behavior might listen to us and make mistakes. And when they do make mistakes, they often never get readdressed simply because of the development time invested in making them is too steep. So to be absolutely clear, we can have a version of Kindred as Basekit, but it has to be very well thought out. It can't work with open-handed, and the killer's aura would need to be hidden for at least the first 10 seconds after a survivor was hooked. I'll come back to this a bit later in the video. Now, in my opinion, the first thing that needs to be ironed out in solo queue is the ability to Kobe or attempt to pull yourself off the hook at will, a feature that 99 times out of 100 is just used to kill yourself on the hook and move on to the next match as fast as possible. It's basically a soft rage quit. On that note, I think there's quite a simple and effective solution to this. Make it to where without deliverance or slippery meat, survivors aren't able to Kobe anymore. In addition, I would change the slippery meat perk so that it would work the same way as low profile does now, so that when no survivors are left standing, it would activate and give you a 100% chance to pull yourself off of the hook. Otherwise, if slippery meat stayed how it is right now, it would just become rage quit meta for salty survivors who want a fast way out of a match. They would literally use slippery meat just to have the option to quit out of a match. Now, I know that sounds like it would be a strong second chance perk, but it would be so incredibly niche that the chain of events that would actually lead to a survivor being able to use this perk would be so ridiculous that I doubt anyone would ever actually care, and the perk might even need a secondary feature to even be used. In addition to that, Behavior could even make pulling yourself off of the hook with a 4% chance only possible when all other survivors are dead or in the dying state, or after the exit gates have been powered. This essentially would hard limit the ability to only be used when it should be used, which is as a last chance mechanic. Alright, next up we have an idea that gets brought up a lot, which is in-game voice comms. And up front, I want to say that if voice comms were ever added to DBD, that would allow random survivors to communicate with each other. As a content creator, I would become a millionaire. So there is nobody that would have more incentive for them to add voice comms than me. That's why when I say I personally believe it's a bad idea for the game, you know it's unbiased. The sheer amount of toxicity that would ooze out of voice comms would be disgusting. It would be like adding Twitter to the game. Toxicity aside, most players would just mute their teammates anyway. A lot of Survive with Friends don't even play on comms. Also, this would be especially pointless here in the EU where I live, where every 2 blocks away from you, somebody speaks a different language. This whole idea is kind of based on a worldview where everyone speaks English, so again, too many flaws and too many downsides. Let's move on to icons and status effects. I really think this is the meat of what will successfully buff solo queue. Survivors should have all the information of what their teammates are currently doing without actually having their hand held and seeing their auras. From a UI perspective, behavior would have to take care not to clutter the screen, but you should be able to see if your teammates are in a chase, repairing a generator, cleansing a totem, blessing a totem, opening a chest, hiding in a locker, being healed, and healing. Likewise, certain status effects or perks should also be visible. Incapacitated, Franklin's Demise, Monstrous Shrine, Unbreakable if a survivor is in the dying state, Deliverance if a survivor is hooked with it, Solidarity, Kinship, Reassurance, Inner Healing, basically anything that's relevant, but only when it's actually relevant to reduce screen clutter and allow solo survivors to make coordinated plays. The vast majority of all solo or off-com buffs come from these changes. Going back to the Basekit Kindred discussion, I think it becomes irrelevant with these changes. You could even have an icon on a hooked survivor that would tell you if the killer is still within a 16-meter range of the hook. That way the team gets the information that a killer is camping without punishing every other killer for basically no reason. What about a ping system though? Another idea I've heard come up quite a few times. I think there is room for a text wheel, but an actual ping system would be mostly unnecessary and not worth all the times it would just be used to be annoying and spammed constantly. For instance, you could bring up a text wheel and select Killer Shack or Main Building, and if you can see your teammate's icon shows they're currently working on a gen, then that most likely means they want help doing a gen at that location, or they want you to avoid bringing the killer there if you're getting chased. On the other hand, if your teammate is being chased, the context of that text shifts, and now you know where they're being chased at or where they're planning on heading next with the killer. So again, between the icon change and a dialogue wheel, I don't think there's really any specific need left over for a ping system. Not to mention that there is actually somewhat of a ping system already in the game, it's just that nobody uses it. We're not done yet though, there's still some important ideas to cover. Let's talk about the pre-game lobby stuff next. I really believe you should be able to see the builds of your teammates the same way you can in DBD Mobile before a match starts, as well as their currently active archive challenge. Unfortunately, archive challenges in my opinion have led to a lot of negativity within Survivor gameplay. As a killer, you not only can optimize your archive challenges, but the archive challenges are just inarguably more simple. Survivor archive challenges on the other hand require you to throw matches quite often, especially if you're being aggressive in obtaining them. I don't want to play with someone who is trying to hide in a bush for 2 minutes in a single trial, so we should encourage survivors doing dumb challenges to play with each other. On top of that, survivors will be able to avoid playing with a self-care no mither Medal of Man Chad as well. All it really takes is one worthless survivor to ruin your match, so just keep like-minded or similarly gold survivors together. It really does feel to me that my solo queue teammates have been watered down since the big meta shift update. I'm not sure where the decent solo players have gone, at least in EU, if they are only playing in a Survive with Friends now, switch to Killer, or just taking a break from the game. All I know is that my teammate quality has dropped significantly. The last part of this discussion has to do with the killer. First off, I already made a video about this, but killers should be able to see who was in a Survive with Friends in the post-game screen only, and if you want to know more about why and how that would work, you could check out my video here. But more importantly, let's talk about how effective solo queue buffs would make the game incredibly more stressful for killer. All of these changes are sort of being done under the guise that DBD will see better balancing for killers when the survivor experience is more evened out. In the future, I'll make a more in-depth video on how you can make those balance changes without destroying the game for everyone who touches grass, but it's important that we do see changes for killer after solo queue buffs are released. Otherwise, we'll see more meta, more tunneling, less killer diversity, things that suck for everyone playing on both sides. So yeah, solo queue buffs first, but be ready to make changes for killer afterwards. But that about sums up my approach to solo queue buffs. The idea is to bridge the gap between solo queue and Survive with Friends without just moving the goalpost and making Swift more powerful, which wouldn't fix the issues at all. Let me know what you guys think though. I know a lot of you will disagree with some of the points here, but I'd like to know why. L+ ratio doesn't really help me out too much. Also, do you have any ideas that I left out of the video? Let me know, and as always, thanks so much for watching and have a good one.